yourself these days? You're not. Like, do you miss the HDC?
Well,
I mean, you've always been so active. Now you're taking a low profile. What's going on?
I'm just working other angles,
Oh, are you?
Gino. Other angles.
Anything
Yeah.
that you want to...
Yeah. Actually,
What's going on?
I got onto the Nantucket Historical Commission, which has not been very active in the past
Explain
number
to
of
people
years.
what that is. How is that different?
What that is it is set up by the state of Massachusetts, and it sort of ramps up under Mass Historical at the State House. And what our charge is to look at the preservation issues that surround the community, where the HDC, as we all found out about a year ago from town council, was to just deal with the exterior architectural features. Well, we get to deal with the sense of place, archaeological issues, visual impact issues, and those kinds of things. So
Without enforcement.
But we're set up to act as an advisory, board to the Board of Selectmen. So.
What are you working on then? What can you
Well,
tell
now,
us a little bit about
what we're working on right now, as an example, and I think it's a very timely example, the bike path going through the creeks has been something that has been discussed for a long time, and I think everybody was perhaps still under the impression that it is a nice little simple path in a very delicate area. And when that came before us, which projects that have a government funding piece to them are asked to come to us and get our sign off and get our input on things. We were a little bit discombobulated a couple of years ago, and not all the correspondence was getting to the chairman of our group, which is Debbie Timmerman, you may know.
Oh, sure.
She's doing a great job. So we picked it back up, and looking at it, it's a monstrosity. The drawings were, from our point of view, were pretty incomplete.
You mean the whole idea of it right now?
The whole idea of it, of this particular section, just this section. Mm-hmm. They only want to do one section. They don't have any commitments on either end of it, so it's sort of a bridge to nowhere. But it's going to basically take what was the old railroad bed, which has a lot of history to it, and run a 14-foot wide path of asphalt that it'll have the same impact that the Hummock Pond bike path.
What would you like to see happen?
Well, I'd like to see him first really explain this to everybody in the community, because I don't think people know the impact it's going to have.
But to their credit, I think what they're trying to do is get people off that road.
Yes, and that should happen.
Okay.
And that should happen. But I think there's ways that other materials, we don't, in our opinion, we don't see the need for asphalt. We don't see the need for concrete curbing. We don't see the need for concrete benches. We don't see the need for all the fencing, all of these things that are kind of government mandated without taking into consideration, the history of the place. And my personal opinion is that we've let the bike paths kind of take on this image and mentality of their own, and there are people that say, it's really changed the rural roads. The early bike paths, Pulpus and Milestone, are really quite sensitive and are off to the side a little bit. They're a little narrower, and they're very nice. The newer ones up on Cliff Road and Hummock Pond are now, painted, striped, and multiple signs and on ramps, and we don't feel it's very sensitive to the community. So we'd like to, our advice to the selectmen is make sure everybody understands the impact of it. Yes, this might seem like free money, but it will change forever the character of that, old railroad bed. So that's that is a very active issue that we just responded on to the selectmen this past week. Sent them a letter. I believe it may come up. I'm not in the next couple of meetings. It may come up as as an agenda item. So it's their choice. It's the choice of the people.
So how do you like
on
doing
Nantucket.
this? I mean, is this how would you say the ability to make things happen with this association?
Well, I think
Could it do it?
I think it will give a voice to the preservation side of these things. We have very strong voices behind development. We have very strong voices behind the planning board and the transportation planners and the architects and the builders and the lawyers.
But aren't they supposed to be doing this too, though? I mean, isn't that part of it?
Yeah, but they report to their clients. We report to the selectmen, and we report to the town. So we get to say, hey, wait a minute. Does everybody know about this? Is this really what we want?
Right.
And I learned a tremendous amount about how this system works at my time at the HDC,
Yes,
and things that weren't working. To in my mind, try to retain our sense of place here, because even in my short time, we're losing it. There's not many houses left. There's not many streetscapes left. Martin's Lane was a huge wake-up call. And to most people, it's probably fine. But I'd like to try to hang on to what we can, as long as we can. And quite frankly, one of the big reasons I got out of the HDC is there's other ways to do this besides fighting and screaming and being upset.
Yep.
And I want to enjoy what we've got while we have it, because it won't be there forever. So that's what's going on.
Well, I'm glad, man. I'm glad you sat down. Aren't you glad you talked to me now?
Well, yes, but we
learned something.
I was afraid you were going to talk to me about tourists, and
no.
I just.
We love the tourists.
We do.
Love them when they come, and we love them when they go.
I love them more when they go. I think we need a big shush. Maybe we need a shush team of people of how loud people are.
You've got to let them out for one weekend. I mean, when else can ordinary people come out here?
Well, I don't mind.
Can't afford it.
That's true. That's true.
This is their only time to really.
I came
break
across
in.
a group of guys. I mean, you hear some interesting stories when you walk the streets every day, and then when you have some visitors here. And there was a group of young guys. It was middle of the day coming to walk down, top of their lungs, blah, 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 one on the cell phone. One guy says to me, "Is this a quiet neighborhood?" I said, "Yeah." I said, it pretty much is. You should really just enjoy it. It's really quiet. His comment was, "How strange."
Well,
and then we had one that's like, what do people
approach.
do here?
Yeah. Right. Right.
So yeah, I mean, I do find it somewhat entertaining, because it used to be, I don't know if you knew Kate Lodge at all or not. She was up in the big White House, Katrina Lodge.
Well, I knew Mr. and Mrs. Lodge.
Yeah, she passed away this past week.
You're kidding? Mrs. Lodge did?
Yeah.
Oh, no way.
Yeah,
I didn't know that.
And
I painted their house.
Did you really?
I knew them so well.
Well, that's how I got to know them, was because John, him and I were the only two guys on Main Street that did our own yard work.
Unbelievable.
So I'd be out there snipping, and he'd be up there snipping, and that's how we got to meet. And
what?
Yeah.
What were you going to say?
So, it's sort of entertainment for us that are out there and
well, what do you think is going to happen to the house? I think it's supposed to become a museum, right? Is that
there were some folks that wanted that to happen.
They
but
always told us that.
I don't know for sure.
Yeah.
I do know that the house has like a lot of restrictions on it, and I believe the NPT holds the restrictions, which is great. I'm glad that Kate did that, because she had the wherewithal to be concerned about those things. I believe I ran into Raphael yesterday. He's kind of thinking that the stuff's going to get auctioned off. That she had been talking to them
Okay.
earlier, and that one of her things was, I want to do it in season. I don't want to do it off season. So, but
Wow,
you know,
that's
I never really
amazing.
met any of her. I think she has a niece, but you know, she was always a friendly face in the neighborhood.
Oh, yeah.
And,
They were characters. He was the ultimate character.
Yeah.
Remember, he used to
Yeah.
have the pocket knife, and he would do one leaf
Oh,
at a
I know.
time.
I know.
And I mean, he had us paint his house. It took us 2.5 years to paint that house.
Yeah.
And he would stand over our shoulder and make sure that the sanding that we did was exactly the way we wanted it.
Yeah, we've lost a few
He was
good
classic,
folks this
and she
spring.
was
It's
wonderful.
been a sad spring for
Yeah, that's true. So many folks.
a lot of things.
Yeah, that's where we're going. But on a good note, it was good to see you again.
good seeing you.
I always like seeing
Thanks.
you.
I'm happy to say a few words.
Thank you.